afternoon. This is Lynn Varney, and I am from On the Air with Lynn Varney, and you're listening to WJOP LP Newburyport, Joppa Radio 96.3. Thanks for joining in this afternoon. And today my guest is Alex Bellinger, and he is with the Merrimack Valley Ship Model Club. So, Alex, welcome.
Well, thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
Glad to have you here this afternoon. And we're going to be talking about the club, and you can tell us all about it and what you have going on actually this week, starting this weekend because of Yankee Homecoming. So can you tell us how this club got started?
A group of model makers were taking a class with Bill Partridge at P.O. Craftsman on Center Street, and they were enjoying what they were doing so much they wanted to continue to meet. So Bill suggested they form a club, and they decided to call it the Merrimack Valley Ship Model Club. This is about 12 years ago. And they started out meeting only maybe half a dozen or 8 or 9 guys. And now we must have, over 50 members. And at our monthly meetings, which are on the second Saturday of every month at the Unitarian Universalist Church, we have probably 30 people show up and talk about the various kinds of ship modeling that they're involved in. It's one of the youngest regional ship model clubs around, but it's very active. On Saturday, we open our Yankee Homecoming Ship Model Show. It's the 5th year we've been doing it. We have over 70 models, and they cover a wide variety of the kinds of interests people have. With large ocean-going ships, small rowing boats, very large models up to 6 feet long or over 6 feet tall, and some of them obviously are very small. And some are made entirely of paper, some are made of fine woods, some are made out of plastic, very skillfully made. It's a good mix of people, and we're all learning from each other.
So the purpose of the club is to get a group of people together with similar interests and to learn from each other and share your passion for building ships of all different sizes and models and types.
Exactly. We all learn from each other, and we share the experiences, and we share the triumphs and the woes.
Well, can you tell us a little bit, what is your specialty? What are you focusing on when you are doing your models?
I'm the ship and bottle guy.
Okay.
And for me, it's always what attractive thing can I put in whatever kind of bottle it happens to come along. And that's always been my fascination. There are some people who do work with radio control. We have a couple of guys who work with live steam, engines which actually use steam and will drive a boat through the water.
Wow.
Yeah. Some people focus on a particular era, like the Second World War. Some people on things just like fishing. A couple of our craftsmen focus on half hulls, which show the beautiful shape of a hull made with fine woods and so on. So.
Wow, it's really, really diverse, I guess.
Yes, which keeps it interesting, and that way I think we learn from each other more.
Mm-hmm. So when the club was first started, or when you first came into the club, was there the diversity that there is, like you were just explaining?
It was too small then, I think, at the beginning, because most of the people were beginners. Mm-hmm. They were just getting started, and they were sort of finding their way. And then as the club grew and the word got out about the club, there was more experienced people joined, and then came that diversity. So there's an active club down in Boston, the Constitution Museum Guild, and some of the members of that who live up on the North Shore are now becoming active with us here.
That's great.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what first drew you to model shipbuilding and how you got into, especially the ones that you specialize in, which are inside of glass objects?
Bad luck, I guess. How often we'll run into somebody and say, oh, I used to make models when I was a kid. And the trouble with us is we didn't stop. And we just kept on going. So who knows where the inspiration comes from? Some people may be able to remember a specific experience or something that got them fascinated with it, but, well, it's something that just, it does take a great deal of time, which is one of the characteristics of whatever kind of ship modeling you do. It's going to be a commitment of very likely hundreds of hours to produce a satisfactory result.
Well, could you possibly hold up one of your ship models so that our TV audience can see? They won't be able to see it on the radio, but we can describe it. And yep, either camera, I think, would probably be fine. Somebody will. Go ahead.
This is a ship model of the kind of ship that was built here in Newburyport around the beginning of the 19th century. And this was my celebration or commemoration of the bicentennial of the War of 1812, because it was the freedom of these ships to be able to sail and trade all around the world, which is what the war was fought over. And this was a good experience because it gave me an opportunity to play with some natural woods, get the tones of the woods. The sides of it are boxwood. The dark wood is ebony. The decking is, the deck planking is holly, and it's a nice white creamy holly that makes the rails. I don't paint very well, and this was a good opportunity to avoid that. This was a satisfactory experience for me.
Now, you literally just make this model through the opening in the bottle that you're using?
Absolutely.
So you must use very fine-tuned tools, tweezers or something that in order to get in?
All of us have to make tools of some kind or another. I love it that you say fine tools. Many of the best ones I made are from coat hangers, which make excellent, And that's something that I know I share with my colleagues, because very often you have to solve a particular problem, and you go and look around the house and what do I have that will do this? And it's often a very humble thing like a hacksaw blade or something you can do with rubber bands, or an earring makes an excellent fine clamp. Not the pierced kind, obviously, but so.
Interesting. So do you build little pieces of it? Say, even, I'm not sure if the hull would fit through your opening, or is the hull actually built within the bottle itself?
There's always kind of a combination of that. The basic principle, and it goes all the way back to the beginning of this, is you make everything outside the bottle in such a way that you can take it apart and put it back together inside the bottle easily. No, easily is the important word.
Yes.
Either you make it collapsible, or in some way or another the parts will come together without losing your mind. But yes, obviously you have to go through the neck. Every once in a while I'll come across somebody who will say, oh, don't you blow the glass around the model? Yeah. And I've never really known what to say to those people, but well, that's satisfying for them, I'm sure.
Some of us don't know the glass blowing process either. So I'm glad that you mentioned that you actually build the model first.
Yes.
And then you could take it apart. It's kind of like with the barns, where you can, if you want to move a barn from one piece of property to another, you can take it apart and label every piece, and then put it together in a similar order. And I'm really fascinated with your the sails on your ship. So how do you get the sail? Like, how do you attach them, and what are they?
The sails are made of paper, and they're colored with it's a warm gray magic marker, and then I lightly scribe them with the point of a common pin. That suggests the seams of the sales. This is all.
You can move it over. Yep.
At about the 16th of an inch to the foot. These two models are the same scale. This is a Friendship sloop from around 1900. And my technique for the sails is just one that I came on from trial and error, a lot of error. And I'm sure all of my colleagues have similar experiences that they could discuss. We learn so much from our mistakes. Mm-hmm. And very often when we get together and talk at our meetings, it's not necessarily celebrating our mistakes, but it's sharing them. I've often thought we ought to have a meeting just basically focusing on don't do this at home. Things that we've tried that really, really didn't work. So, wow.
So the 3 models that you have here, I imagine that you've gotten better as you've gone on in the years of doing this after 10 years or so.
Well, yes and no. This is one of the oldest models I have. Mm-hmm. It's of the, this is the Sparkman and Stevens Yawl Dorade. She was built in 1930, and she's still afloat and winning races today. She just won a race out of, I think, Newport. She came in second.
Wow.
I made this model in 1992, and my eyes were a lot better then. I look at some of the things that I did in the rigging, mm-hmm. and I don't think I can do that kind of work anymore. Mm-hmm. So I make bigger models, and
and you can get the detail on those.
Yeah. What I hope, maybe my skills may not keep up with my age, but that the enjoyment is always going to be there. And I think any one of us will say, what is our favorite ship model? It's the next one we're going to build.
And do you have a list of, ships that you plan to or that you're looking forward to building?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. There's always something that I would look forward to doing. Sure. And I think all the guys are like that too. Some of the time that goes into a model, you have to keep focus on it and not get drawn off into another project. But it's thinking about going on to that next thing that I think helps motivate us and finish up the one we're currently working on.
So can you tell us a little bit about what people will see if they come on, starting on Saturday, between 10 and 5, I think, right, at the Unitarian Universalist Church?
Yes, 10 to 5 every day. And we'll have about 75, 76 models there. And as I said, they range from small rowing boats to large ocean-going vessels. And there's one large model of a very much larger version of this, a Friendship sloop, mm-hmm. Which Robin Neal, Nashua, New Hampshire, made. And there are also fine miniatures. There's a gentleman who has joined us this past year named Richard Price, who makes wonderful, wonderful miniature models of fine warships of extremely good detail. One other new reporter here in town, Rob Napier, will have at least one of his models there. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to see the list in my mind mm-hmm. of the models that'll be there. Some of them have been displayed before, mm-hmm. but I'd say there's going to be at least half of them are going to be new this year, because there are some model makers are very energetic. There's a relatively new member who joined us, I think, only a couple of years ago, named Ralph Cooper, and I think he's completed almost 4 models in the past year, which is a remarkable pace. His latest one, Flying Cloud, unfortunately probably will not be done, Mike Swanson is the vice president of the club, and his model of Bounty is complete now. It's taken him about 2 years.
Wow.
No, I think it's taken him longer than that. I'm not sure if he's going to bring his big model of Victory. That took him 25 years.
Wow.
Well, with time off,
Right.
wondering what he was doing. So.
Wow. And so is it every day during Yankee Homecoming? It starts this
Absolutely.
Saturday and goes through, does it go through Sunday, the following Sunday, a whole week? Or that Saturday, like Saturday to Saturday?
No, it's basically it's Saturday to Saturday because
Okay.
Sunday's the day of the parade.
Right.
You know,
So
and-
everybody will be up there.
Yeah,
And I think it's open 10 to 5.
yeah.
And it sounds like there will be some of you model shipbuilders.
Absolutely,
who will
there will be 3 or 4 of the people, the club members there, and probably a number will be working on some project, and they will be delighted to explain how some of these things were built. There will be some models in progress too, which I think sometimes can be as interesting as some of the completed models. So,
Oh, definitely, yes. And are there competitions that people like get into, or are there ways like other?
well, we have 2 guys, John Williamson and Larry O'Neill, and they've been racing each other over the past 4 years to see who can complete their model of the Flatty, which is a fairly basic model. And I think John may be a little bit ahead right now. We don't have any kind of judging in this show. The Constitution Museum show, which is in January of every year, is a jury, what they call a juried show, and there are prizes awarded for best in show and so forth. But we don't do that. We're not really, I don't think we're at a point where we're that interested in that, but other members may disagree. As a matter of fact, I think it's already been proposed that we have a most popular, let the people who are coming to the show vote for their favorite. So,
And you could see how that changes over the years too.
oh
if
sure,
as the trends go.
oh sure,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Do you ever have people from out of town who wish to be a part of this, the show, the actual show? Not necessarily, they might be farther than they could come to be a regular club member, but just that they hear about the show for the Yankee Homecoming week and want to come in and display their wares, or?
We have had a few. There are members of the Constitution Guild and the Cape Ann. There is a small model club down in Cape Ann who have participated, and there's also there's a very active what we call a show and go club called. It'll come to me in a minute. Bill Michaels is one of our members, but he's also more active in this particular club. I think they call themselves the Minutemen of New England, and they do all radio control models. But all those people have participated and brought models in. That's I don't know if any are active this year. I can't think off the top of my head if there are, but it adds to the variety, and I think also the feeling of community between ship model clubs, because they've always been very generous in inviting us to participate in their events, and we also feel like they should be welcome at ours. So,
Is part of being a model shipbuilder creating your own design? Oh, I mean, using a ship that that you'd like to do, but are you the one that has to do the small scale first and then figure out how to get it into the? It's not like you can go out and buy a box that has the model ship, right? Or even some of the other people who might be doing the smaller boats, or
well,
is it kind of something that you're engineering on your own?
that a certain amount of that. There's a certain amount of that self-engineering in all projects. Some models are made. You essentially do buy the box, and you get all the pieces, and that's what we call a kit.
Okay.
But anyone who's finished a kit will tell you that there gets to be a point where you're doing what we call scratch building, which is essentially making all your own all your own pieces, all your own parts yourself, from your own ingenuity and what you can do with the materials. Then again, there are the people who start completely from scratch. They don't buy anything that's pre-made for it. But you were talking about the designs, and one of our members has Tony Malia, who always seems to wander a little bit into some of the more adventurous ends, is now working on the idea of taking the design of the Schooner Adventure and translating it into a three-dimensional computer design that he will then be able to apply to a 3D printer.
Wow.
So it's very much a design, very active design experience. So one of our members also makes models of things which have a very significant story. Last year, he had a model of Claude Monet's floating studio, the flat bottom boat that Claude Monet used when he went out and painted the famous lily pond, his pond paintings. This year he has one called the James Cain Cairn, which was a refurbished lifeboat that was strengthened and her sides were raised so that Shackleton, the explorer, could take her with 5 other men from, I think it's South Georgia to Elephant Island. I think I have the names of the islands correct. Something like 18 days at sea. So the members of Shackleton's expedition could eventually be rescued. He's done a number of interesting models like that, but they always have some sort of story behind them.
That's fascinating, and it does make me realize that there's probably almost an endless supply of different types of boats that have been used for very, very many different reasons that have stories. Like we all have our own story of our life, and boats have their own stories as well.
Next year may be a very interesting year because it is, I think I'm going to pronounce this right, the quadricentennial of the Mayflower coming to Plymouth. And Mayflower's shallop, essentially her ship's boat, is being rebuilt at Lowell's Boat Shop right now. And the ship herself is being refurbished at Mystic. And we've talked about trying to honor this particular anniversary with our show next year and acknowledge explorers of all kind. So we may be looking at doing a theme for next year's show. And some of the stories related behind a vessel which otherwise we may never have heard of, but took part of something of great historical moment, like Mayflower or Santa Maria or Endeavor.
That sounds like a wonderful idea, a theme. So have any of your other years, the past 5 years, have they had a theme?
We've tried to do it, and we tried once to put together at least a small section of the display for just vessels involved with Newburyport. And we're still trying to do that on a regular basis. But so far, we haven't done that. We've also frequently talked about trying to do at least part of the exhibit with a special emphasis on the Coast Guard, because this, of course, is the birthplace of the Coast Guard. Oh.
And we are a Coast Guard city, yes.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So that's good. We just have a few minutes left. Are there any things that you would like to entice our listeners with to come on down during this next week, starting on, I think is it the 27th? Saturday the 27th, August 27th?
Yes, thank you for reminding me the date. Yes,
okay.
That's right. Yes.
So I think it's July 27th through August 3rd to come down.
Newburyport is a wonderful maritime port, and it really feels great to be active here with this and this acknowledgement of our maritime heritage. We have a good time, and It's air conditioned.
Just in case we get some heat like we've had in the past week.
Right. Yes.
Well, that's great. So it's 10 to 5, starting Saturday, July 27th through August 3rd.
At the Unitarian Universalist Church at the lower level.
And that, I think, is 26 Pleasant Street.
26 Pleasant Street, that's right.
And there's plenty of parking around. There are paid parking lots and parking on the street as well, timed, of course. And thank you very much, Alex.
Well, thank you, Lynn. Thank you for inviting me, and I hope you will come on down and visit the members of the Merrimack Valley Ship Model Club this coming week.
I absolutely will. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to On the Air with Lynn Varney. You are right now listening to WJOP-LP in Newburyport, Joppa Radio 96.3. Thank you and have a great day.